Yeah, hi Divya. Good
Hi.
afternoon. All
Good.
good at my end.
Yeah,
How about you?
yeah, so even I'm good. So I'll also fire away. I'll start. So my first question is, considering Synersoft is achieving such great heights, what are the future goals for your company, and how do you aim on achieving them?
Yeah, see, we always align the future goals of Synersoft with probably we can say future goals of our country. And, as we have seen, this particular government is coming up with a lot of initiatives for Make in India and Make for the World. Okay. So we are very bullish that Indian MSME sector is going to be one of the biggest beneficiary of these government policies and make for the world when large companies or large manufacturing engineering companies are establishing in India in their vendor development program. These MSMEs are going to do great. They are going to have very good opportunities. So our future goal is also aligned with that. We continue to invest in R&D for the solutions which are very relevant to MSMEs. So if I talk about next 3 years, we of course have a very proven IT infrastructure product which serves as so many systems in a single box. Now we are focusing all our R&D investment in productivity and artificial intelligence and machine learning. So the next versions of the black box in times to come will also serve as a IT infrastructure product and will also serve as a productivity monitoring tools, so that MSMEs can make their users more productive. So that is something which is strategically we are planning actually.
Okay. So as we all know that threat towards the cyber industry is increasing excessively. What are the major threats which are affecting SMEs in general, and are there any new and initiate? Are there any new threats which are occurring now, like new threats?
Yeah, see, when we talk about cyber threat in general, it is mostly related to ransomware, related to hackers, related to data breach.
Yeah.
All that is true and phenomenal in terms of the damages when it happens to a very large enterprise. But when we talk about MSMEs,
Yeah.
that entire perspective of cyber security or cyber attack changes basically. I'll give you a small example. See, basically there is a small MSME who is a supplier to some large enterprise or an MSME. Now, this particular MSME has some data, has some intellectual property, some business sensitive data, but it is in a very small quantity. In hackers language we can say there is no juice in that particular data, and when somebody tries to execute a data breach or a hacking attack, the one who is doing it has to invest a lot of resources, time, expertise in getting someone hacked. So when if we look at the perspective of a hacker, he would better invest his time, resource, expertise in hacking something big, instead of hacking someone very small, because there is no juice. So SMEs are naturally immune of such organized cyber attacks or cyber threats.
Hmm.
What they are vulnerable is from external sources or external forces. They are vulnerable to some automated attacks. So there are two types of attack. One, is automated attack. There are bots executed, and if they find something vulnerable, they will go inside. Another is, there is a planned attack. They do a lot of raking on internet and all that, and then they strategize and then do the attack. Okay. So MSMEs are not so vulnerable to such attacks because they are not going to be interested in that. Another type of attack, which is automated bots. Now our antivirus system, our firewall systems are so good and maturing. Most of these automated attacks are detected. Sorry. Most of these automated attacks are detected and they are dealt with also. So what is actually a cyber threat or cyber attack for an MSME? It is insider threats. these MSMEs have so many people working, and these people would be the biggest beneficiary if that IPR or if that data or if that customer data or that sensitive business information or that tender bid would be, leaked or stolen. It has competitive value. Okay, so sometimes people are interviewed by the competitor. They of course hire the individual. At the same time, they also see what that individual is taking along with him. So that is what we call insider threats. And because now everything is electronic, now everything is digital digitalized basically, it is very easy, to exfiltrate something which is an IPR or business information or data outside or USB, email attachment, internet, whatnot. So these insider threats are something for which MSMEs should be concerned about, and that is where we can say that this insider threat mitigation is should be the prime objective for MSMEs. So when we talk about cyber crime or cyber attack with a perspective of MSME setup, we should more focus on insider threats than external threats.
Okay. So, sir, moving back to your company, since the need for the target is quite vital for any company, what are your major targets for Synersoft altogether, and what's your aim on achievement in the year 2030?
Yeah, so see, when we started this company, we really wanted to develop a product which is not dependent on a specific business vertical. There would be very specific products, like for example, there is an ERP for construction company, or there is an ERP for engineering company, or there is an ERP for pharma company, or something like that. So we always wanted to develop a vertical agnostic product, and it was difficult because every vertical had a different need, and we had to incorporate all those needs in a single product. So whether that product is being used by a chartered accountant, it will satisfy a chartered accountant's requirements, as well as it will satisfy an engineering or manufacturing company's requirement. So that was our design approach to this particular product. And in coming years, up to 2030, if we have that horizon to look at or look forward to, we would like to continue that design thinking, and we would like to involve more and more MSME verticals, that can be covered by our product. And our basic deliverable
Yeah,
was IT standardization,
yeah,
data protection, and information security. That was our deliverable. But yes, now in 2030, by 2030, we would like to add two more dimensions to that. Another dimension we would like to add would be productivity monitoring. As an SME owner, he would benefit a lot if his team is productive.
yeah.
And most of the people in MSME work on computers, and if they are productive on computers, definitely it will benefit them. So we want to add a dimension of productivity to this. And second dimension we want to add is remote computing abilities. Most of the MSMEs nowadays are so fragmented, because of the talent acquisition problems, because of the global competition, they cannot afford to remain in one location and operate from one location. Sometimes an MSME is doing extremely good in a very remote area of Nashik. There, that MSME might not be able to acquire the talent. So he might acquire the talent from Bangalore, and that Bangalore guy would not be interested in moving to Nashik. So MSME will have to allow that particular person to work remotely. Similarly, MSMEs and the senior management people of MSMEs, travel a lot. They
Yeah.
do business development themselves, so they travel a lot. And when they travel a lot, they need consistent access to their software systems, to their IT systems. So that is another dimension which we want to add is remote working capability for an
Cloud,
MSME.
cloud work.
Yeah, it would be by cloud, it would be by application virtualization. We are investing a lot in application virtualization nowadays. where MSME specific applications can be virtualized. The data is available anywhere on the cloud, and that's how we can give them remote working abilities or capabilities in their organization. So these are the two things which we are trying
Need
to
to achieve.
add. Yeah, and we understand that by 2030, just like we are leading this particular market in IT standardization, data protection, and information security domain for MSMEs, I'm saying we would be doing so for productivity and remote working also.
Okay. So what, according to you, are the best security solutions for MSMEs?
See, again, there are fantastic security solutions available and developed by IT industry, but most of these solutions are developed for a large scale usage use case,
Yeah, not personalized, I guess.
even not personalized, even not for the small scale usage.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. All firewall you look at, best to moderately rated on Gartner or whatever. This firewall have two features. One is multiple bandwidth management and another is load balancing.
Yeah.
Now, MSMEs are too small for this. They neither have inbound connections, just like a bank would have through its net banking apps or any other company would have through its customer service apps. MSMEs don't have such inbound connections, so they actually don't need load balancing actually from inbound traffic. There's no inbound traffic. Similarly, they are also providing multiple bandwidth. Somebody MSME, who is located in a very remote area, वहां पे उसको ब्रॉडबैंड अच्छा सा मिल जाए तो भी बहुत अच्छी बात है. इट इज नॉट लाइक वहां पे ही वुड गेट लीज लाइन एंड MPLS एंड लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स. अदरवाइज ही वुड हैव टू अदरवाइज वी वुड हैव टू मेक लॉट ऑफ कैपिटल इन्वेस्टमेंट व्हिच ही वुड नॉट डू. So for him, multiple bandwidth management is also something which is, not he is going to use it. But when he buys a firewall, he pays for all this, right? So when we talk about the best security solution for MSME, we have to see what value it is giving to MSME in terms of return on his investment. So for us, we believe that any product which is designed for a small scale usage, when a product is designed for a small scale usage, it will not have so many features. When it does not have so many features, it will not be so expensive. And because it does not have so many features, it would be simple also. See, otherwise, if you have a complex and expensive product, you would require highly talented IT professional to manage it. So for me, if I have to define the best security product for MSME, it should be very minimalistic on the features. It should contain only features that are required by MSME. Second, it should be reasonably priced. And third, it should not require highly talented IT professional. Any average IT professional should be able to manage it. So that is where whatever products score well, they are the best security product for MSME. And our design thinking approach for BLACKbox is same. We don't say that we are best, but we also aim to be best. And I think that this is the right way. In case I want to aim my product to be considered as the best product, it has to be minimalistic. BLACKbox is a single hardware, single software system, so we don't load so many features to it. It has to be cost effective. BLACKbox is 1/3 of the cost of any other comparable product, and it is very simple to use. If you look at our BCSP program, BLACKbox certification program, most of the kids who are doing this BCSP program are 12th pass. So basically, they are not computer engineers or BTechs or MTechs. They are very humble. In their qualification. Correct. And they can still manage our product. So for me, definition of a best security product has to be minimalistic, cost effective, and simple to manage. It does not require highly talent, because MSMEs cannot afford IT talent. IT talent is just too expensive.
So, sir, since we were talking about remote working, and the main subjects that is in remote working is sustainability, which is now the most significant topic discussion all over the globe. What, according to you, is the most sustainable factor of remote working?
See, uh, when we talk about sustainability, probably remote working would require a lot of bandwidth. It would require a lot of bandwidth. Let's say if I have 50 users working remotely, at least on my hub side, I will require a lot of bandwidth.
Yeah.
And bandwidth will consume a lot of electricity for data centers and all. So if we are aiming at sustainable remote working solutions, we have to make sure that they are bandwidth frugal. We have to make sure that they are bandwidth frugal. Currently, majority of the remote working happens through VPN.
VPN.
So an enterprise would have an application. That application is connected by the VPN, and that VPN, through that particular VPN, that application is accessed. Now, because VPN is something which is a very, very bandwidth intensive communication, mode. A lot of bandwidth is required, otherwise it slows down. And when a remote working requires more bandwidth, the sustainability of the remote working in terms of cost of ownership increases, as well as on the environmental side. As you want more bandwidth, it will also affect the carbon footprint, because bandwidth is something which is not, of course, it is also having a lot of environmental things when you have bandwidth. So if we want to make remote working sustainable, we have to develop the products which are bandwidth frugal, which can give the same user experience, but at 1/10 of the bandwidth. And I would suggest, in order to do that, virtualization of the applications. I'm not talking about virtualization of the hardware or infrastructure. I'm talking about virtualization of the applications is the right approach to make remote working more and more sustainable. And we are investing in virtualization of applications. Our one of the product, we just very youngest product, I would say, AAA access applications anywhere, is based on virtualization. So basically, we think that virtualization, being it bandwidth frugal, will make remote working more sustainable. And again, people would continue remote working only if people are productive in remote working. Otherwise, we see a lot of announcements by many companies, you have to come to the office now. Okay. So all these things are happening just because, remote working may not be cost effective, because it might save overheads on the infrastructure. At the same time, it might increase overheads on the bandwidth. So if we are not able to check the expenses on the bandwidth, remote working wouldn't be sustainable. And that's the reason any product which is bandwidth frugal, should contribute positively to sustainability of remote working.
So, in your past interviews, we've heard you talking about data center backup importance, the importance of data backup. So, why do you think it's important, and what's Synersoft doing for the same?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, it is very important, and most of the MSMEs need to understand this. And I would say not understand it, they have to accept it also. See, I'll give you an example. In last July, August, Ahmedabad is I'm from Ahmedabad, and Ahmedabad is not a city where a lot of rain is there. So even if there is heavy rain for 8-10 hours, water logs heavily. So in last monsoon, it happened in Ahmedabad, and many of the places got waterlogging and got flooded. We had seen so many offices which are in the basements, and they had a lot of IT systems, including few of our customers had also black boxes there. And they were flooded. And I'll tell you, many of them did not know what to do, because once the IT product is completely merged in the water, you can't really do anything about it, right? and data recovery and all that is expensive and time consuming. You cannot continue your business immediately,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there has to be an off-premise data backup. It has to be. Most of the MSMEs, normally have a practice that we will every week take backup on a hard disk and we'll take that hard disk home.
Yeah.
That happens for 1 or 2 months, but then it does
After
not
that,
continue.
yeah.
Yeah, then it is just vaporized. Okay, that entire spirit is vaporized. So uh, there has to be a background silent data backup system which pushes your product or data, on cloud, and it encrypts it, it compresses it so you don't use a lot of bandwidth. It encrypts it so in case there is a breach, encryption will provide good protection. So data center backup is absolutely required to maintain the business continuity in reasonable time after a disaster or hardware failure. Now, coming to the available solutions, if you look at the solutions available by Google or Microsoft or Amazon, they are very expensive. And few of these service providers have priced or they are working on a business model
Enterprise.
per user per month.
Yeah.
So let's say, for example, I have 30 GB of storage of Google Drive for each user, and let's say I have 100 users, I have 3 TB of storage.
Which.
But I cannot store 3 TB of the data on this 3 TB of storage because there is a cap. Only 30 GB can be utilized. So some user requires more than 30 GB, some users require less than 30 GB. So there has to be a concept of pool space, organization space. Instead, it should be per user per, it should not be per user per year, it should be per enterprise per year. Now imagine if this organization gets 3 TB per enterprise, per year, then they can use it effectively. So that is something where, I always am very candid about such business models of per user per year. Instead, it should be per enterprise per year.
Okay.
So that is something where we believe that every MSME should acquire such space and upload the data. Another very, very important application of cloud backup or data center backup is laptops. Most of the MSME users who use laptop never have time to take the backup of those laptops.
Yeah.
Something happens to the laptop and data is lost and productivity is lost, and many a times organization loses business continuity. So these laptops should also be backed up automatically in background very silently, so that in case something happens to the laptop, business continuity is not compromised. So data center backup or cloud backup is very, very important.
So, what according to you are the most vital processes of data backup for our MSMEs? Like, what's the most important?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, most of the times we have some backup strategies, okay? And these backup strategies are very good for large enterprise. Large enterprises first have RAID controller so that in case there is a hardware fails, they have a continuity. Then they have high availability of their devices. Then maybe they have, a backup happening on some other device in the same network. Then they have a backup on the data center.
Yeah.
See, MSMEs cannot afford all these things. So MSMEs should focus on versioned backup. That is the best practice. Most of the times what happens, MSME takes full backup every week. Most of the times, And when they take full backup every week, if there is any infection or corruption in the data, when they perform that particular backup, that is overwritten. So if an MSME has to plan the backup, he has to make sure that he has versioned backup. So today's backup, tomorrow's backup, day before, a day after tomorrow's backup, something like that. So when there is something, some event happens where he needs to restore the backup. Let's say today ransomware has attacked and all his data is gone, In that case, he should have previous day's version backup, so that at least he can restore it and continue the business. Another most important practice is whichever is your backup media or backup destination where you are taking versioned backup should not be accessible on the network. Many a times what happens, a ransomware attacks and it attacks the live data as well as it attacks the backup destination data and encrypts it. Then you have nothing to restore from, right?
Yeah.
So there has to be a best
Right.
backup practice, and we call it as DC-DC process, disconnect, connect, disconnect, connect process,
Okay.
where whenever you are taking a version backup, always disconnect your source of data from entire network. And whenever your backup is over, and whenever you are connecting your source of data to entire network for the use of data, always disconnect your backup destination. So first disconnect your source of backup,
Hmm.
connect your destination of the backup, take the backup,
Yeah.
disconnect the destination of the backup from source of the backup, and then connect the
Again.
source of the backup. So this is the best practice.
Okay.
It will not allow ransomware to spread across your backups.
Yeah.
So this is the best practice, and we have seen, many organizations have saved their fortunes by following this. And in the case of ransomware, there was no panic, there was no loss of business continuity.
So, sir, as Synersoft believes that BLACKbox is IT in a box solution which can suffice the domain controller backup systems, how would you say that it is true?
See, I'll tell you, let's say if any organization has to create standard IT systems, it could be on premise, it could be on cloud, but the services, the core services required from that IT infrastructure is same. One is file sharing server.
Yeah.
One has to invest in a file sharing hardware. Then for policy enforcement, one has to invest in domain controller. For that, again, another hardware is required. Server operating system is required. Then one needs endpoint controllers to control the USB ports and endpoints. Then one requires storage,
Yeah.
like NAS device or something where the backup can happen as well as the archival can happen. Then one requires a good email distribution or email backup systems. People would like to keep the backup of their emails also. Then one requires a good firewall so that they are protected from any external attack. Then they would require VPN server also in case they want few users to access their networks remotely. So there are so many different solutions required and they need to be integrated.
Yeah.
And most of these solutions are either software or hardware provided by different companies. NAS is provided by different company, firewall is provided by different company. So the integration of all these components, which creates a standard IT infrastructure, becomes complex and expensive also. What we have seen is that all these systems have a lot of features.
Yeah.
And MSMEs don't require all those features. So we followed a principle, design principle, that 20% of the features would 100% satisfy
The needs of it.
80% of the market.
Yeah.
Okay, 20% of the features would 100% satisfy 80% of the market. So just like I have this mobile phone, it might be loaded with 100 features, but I might be using only 20 features. Correct. So we followed that principle and we found out the most prioritized features MSMEs would require, and they were indeed 20%. And by making those features 20%, we could save upon the hardware resources required to run or host those services. And that's how, instead of having 8 different software and hardware systems, we could make it run on a single hardware. So it saved a lot of cost on hardware part because it's a single software. It saved a lot of cost on software part, and that's why we call it as a single hardware, single software product. And the bonus is all these services talk to each other.
Hmm.
Otherwise, when you have IT infrastructure by integration of so many other products, they don't really talk to each other. Like firewall would never talk to file server. Okay. In IT in a box solution or single hardware, single software product, our firewall talks to the file server. So let's say, for example, user goes to Google Drive, the firewall will instruct the file server to isolate the data so that user cannot upload that data on Google Drive for data leakage prevention objective. So IT in a box, of course, has a very minimalistic features, but if those minimalistic features are the only features required by an MSME, he saves a lot of cost, and it is very simple because he has to manage only one single dashboard.
So, what do you think that the situation of data being stolen can be avoided altogether? Like, how can be avoided altogether, and what has BLACKbox contributed for the prevention of data theft?
Yeah, very good question. So, see, there are two different approaches to data theft prevention. The
Hmm.
first approach is monitoring.
Okay.
The first approach is monitoring. So, for example, we monitor everything. We generate every single log and we monitor that log. And over and above, we have some viewers, dashboards, so that we can monitor it. And as soon as we find anything which is suspicious, we immediately get into it and we immediately inquire and audit it. That is one way of preventing data theft. That is possible for very large enterprises who have IT departments, who have large teams in IT. But for an MSME, he does not have people who have time to monitor a lot of things.
Yeah.
So for them, this particular approach of data theft prevention really does not work. It is practically not effective for MSME because though it generates a lot of alerts, no, there is nobody to respond to those alerts. So our approach, because our product is MSME driven product, our approach is maximum control. There the approach was maximum monitoring. Here it is maximum control. So that approach was maximum control, sorry, maximum monitoring, minimum control. Here our approach is maximum control, minimum monitoring. I'll give you an example. For example, in an MSME, there are 30 users. Now the MSME owner knows that out of those 30 users, 15 users are not at all interfacing the world. They are not facing the world. They are internal. They need internal communication, and for that, they need emails. They are not supposed to send email to any outsider party. In BLACKbox, you can make a policy that these 15 users can send emails internally only. Then, by default, they cannot send the data or leak the data to an outsider, right? So it is a control. You have established a controlled policy so that you don't have to monitor those 15 users, correct? Now let's say rest of the 15 users, organization knows that these are my procurement guys who require to connect with the world. These are my engineers who require to connect with the customers. Then they know who are these customers. So let's say if an engineer is working on a specific project, and let's say he is working on such 5 different projects of different 5 customers, if he makes a policy that this engineer can send my DWG data or drawing data only to these 5 parties, then there is no scope of data leakage.
Yeah.
Then what happens? We have controlled it. Now this guy cannot send emails beyond these 5 parties with DWG attachment, right? So we have controlled it. So we don't have to monitor it. So maximum control means minimum monitoring, and minimum monitoring means minimum time spent on checking the alerts and responding to the alerts. Now let's say, for example, another example I'll give you, maximum control. These MSMEs install firewalls. Okay, now and then they disable or they deny the access to Google Drive and Dropbox because they suspect that users might upload their confidential data. What if a customer calls the user कि भाई मुझे मैंने अभी ये लेजर अपलोड किया है गूगल ड्राइव पे, आप डाउनलोड करके मुझे उसका रिस्पॉन्स करिए. Then user will genuinely require access to Google Drive. Now how will you ensure that कि उसको Google Drive का एक्सेस दे दिया तो वो Google Drive अपने पर्सनल पे नहीं जाएगा और हमारा सब डेटा नहीं ले जाएगा, right? So in a way you have to allow Google Drive and you have to keep worrying वो क्या करेगा. So what we have done, we have established a control. हमने क्या किया, एक मैजिक ब्राउजर बनाया जो हमें रिसेंटली लॉन्च किया.
ओके.
कि ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में जितनी वेबसाइट्स की जरूरत है जैसे जीएसटी, बैंकिंग, दिस दैट, वो खाली मिलेगी यूजर को. गूगल ड्राइव नहीं मिलेगी.
ओके.
अगर उसको गूगल ड्राइव जाना है, ड्रॉप बॉक्स जाना है, और एनी अदर वेबसाइट विच इज नॉट अलाउड बाय द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन बाय इट्स इंटरनेट पॉलिसी, user does not have to go to the owner or the IT manager to get it permitted when customer requires him to access those websites. He can open magic browser, open that particular website. Now magic browser is designed such that you can download the data, you cannot upload the data.
Okay.
Then organization owner or IT manager is not worried. Okay, you go to Google Drive as many times as you want, no problem. I am not worried because I have controlled your actions such that you cannot upload anything. Then I am not worried. I am not worried what you download to service your customer, right? So that is what we call about data leakage prevention or data theft prevention: maximum control, minimum monitoring, and that is the principle we follow basically.
So that's a great step, by the way. And moving along, what was the major idea behind BLACKbox innovative tech walls and workspaces? Major idea. How did you start?
Right. So basically, the same thing, DC, disconnect, connect, disconnect, connect,
Yeah.
Theoretically, scientifically, it is a very known and well understood thing. But how you get it done? As a SME owner, he does not have someone who can get it done. If he asks someone to do it manually, sometimes he will forget disconnecting, sometimes he will forget connecting, and sometimes he will keep the hidden chamber connected, right?
Yeah.
So Vault and
For layman,
Workspace,
it's very confusing.
correct. And human error is always there. And in MSME, you don't have very highly talented IT people. So we wanted to automate it. We wanted to make sure that when there is a disconnect, the next step is always connect. When there is a connect, the next step is always disconnect. So we designed Vault and Workspace. What we have done in Vault and Workspace is that Vault is something which is containing all the data, which is accessed by the user but not modified. I'll tell you how. See, let's say we have just completed our this year audit, for example.
Yeah.
So whatever our audited accounts are not subject to any change, right? But the user would require to check last year's accounts for many purposes. But he's not going to make any changes because they are audited, right? So we transfer that kind of data in Vault, and in Vault, any data is edit locked.
Edible.
Edit locked. Edit locked means you cannot edit that particular data.
Yeah. Okay.
You can always access it.
Okay.
Now let's say ransomware strikes. That data would not be affected because it will not allow ransomware even to edit that data. So Vault will serve the purpose. Now Workspace is something where users are regularly working on day-to-day basis. So where we cannot make the data edit locked. But 20% of the data would be such on which users are regularly working. So let's say if an organization has 4 terabyte of data, maybe 800 3.5 terabyte or maybe 3 terabyte of the data would be such that would be in the Vault, and rest of the data would be on regular basis user would be working on, right? So when you have lesser data to protect, you have already protected majority of your data in the Vault by making it edit locked. Now you have smaller portion of your data which you need to protect. You can very well efficiently define versioned backup for that. You can maintain more versions of that particular data, So that gives you a lot of flexibility, and that's how Vault and Workspace works. So in Vault, you have all the data which is edit locked, and that data is normally the data which is being used by the user, and there is an AI in that, and it determines that, okay, this file is not accessed by any user for so many months, let me put it in the vault, or let me stamp it as a vault. So it becomes edit log. So user does not have any problem in accessing it. Of course, they'll not be able to edit it. In case they want to edit it, they have to save it as in the workspace and edit it. They can do that also. But then workspace will be left with very less volume of data, and then you can take more versions of the data, because less volume means more space for more versions. So that is what we mean by vault and workspace.
So moving to the last segment, what are the benefits of active global recycle bin? And if the data is restored easily, how can it be considered safe enough for it not to get stolen?
Right. So see, there are three things. One, most of the MSMEs do not have users working individually. They work on a network folder. Okay, because let's say there is a project going on, one engineer is using the drawing of one component, another engineer is doing drawing of something other, and then they have to collaborate with each other. So normally they have a project folder which is stored on the network or on the cloud, and then they access the files, with each other. So you have to, as an admin, give permission to multiple people on a single folder, right? Now, what happens out of, let's say, one folder is being accessed by 10 people and one person accidentally deletes something from that.
Yeah.
Then it is very difficult to find out, who has deleted what, right? So that is where, and what if that guy has deleted the file intentionally? That is even more dangerous. So active recycle bin does two things. Whenever any data which is shift deleted, shift deleted is a way in Windows to delete the data permanently. So any data which is deleted shift and delete will be captured in an active recycle bin somewhere on the black box in its storage. So in case after some time enterprise realizes that some user had intentionally or accidentally deleted that data, they can easily restore it from that. And they would also know who has deleted. So in case somebody has intentionally done that, they would know that who has done that, and they can actually. Now about easily restorable. So what we have done is access to the active recycle bin is not with the users.
Okay.
It is only with the admin. So
Okay.
let's say I have accidentally deleted some data. I would go to my admin and tell that I have accidentally deleted the data. I need it back. Then admin will give it to me. So it is not easy for a user to restore it. It is easy for the admin to restore it. In case I have intentionally deleted the data, then I am not going to go to the admin and tell him that I have deleted the data, right? Then some other user who needs that data would approach admin that, okay, this data was there on the network. I am not able to find out. Somebody has deleted it. Then admin would give that data from recycle bin, as well as he would find out who has done that. Now coming to the how people cannot steal that data. Again, while the user's active recycle bin data is restored, USB policies, internet policies, and email policies with that maximum control, minimum monitoring approach would be active. So he cannot really steal that data.
Okay. So why do you think that the awareness of data loss prevention software, DLP softwares, is required in the tech community?
In the tech,
Community. Like
yeah,
why
it
do you
is.
think awareness of it is required? I don't think it's well aware. People know about it.
Yeah, see, basically, business continuity is something we have to be very serious.
Yeah.
In India, what happens? The manpower is not as expensive as Western countries. In Western countries, to a labor, you pay more than you pay to a white collar guy in India, correct? So they understand the value of human hours, man hours. We really don't appreciate and understand that, and that's the reason we are not so sensitive to maintenance of business continuity. So business, if cannot continue because of data loss, those losses are irreversible, and many a times organizations cannot recover from that. And that is the reason, for the sake of business continuity, every organization should have DLP policy and DLP strategy.
So, this is my last question. Do you think that small companies require DLP software as much as big companies do?
Everyone requires it. Let's say, for example, a small company is a supplier to Mercedes.
Yeah.
So Mercedes is a big company, okay, and they must have exchanged some design to that small company, and they must have, had an agreement, non-disclosure agreement kind of, where you have to make sure that our
Otherwise,
confidential data is not lost or stolen, you know. तो वो स्मॉल कंपनी भी फिर उसमें बाइंड हो जाती है, राइट? स्मॉल कंपनी एज्यूम्स दैट लायबिलिटी. दैट इज वन पार्ट ऑफ इट. अनदर पार्ट ऑफ इट इज कि लेट्स से कुछ प्रॉब्लम हो गया उसके आईटी सिस्टम में, एंड ही कुड नॉट डिलीवर द गुड्स, फॉर एग्जांपल. नाउ एवरीथिंग गोज बाय आईटी. आपका डिलीवरी चलन भी आईटी में ही बनता है, आपके ईआरपी में ही बनता है, राइट? Now let's say because of some ransomware attack he has lost the data, or something happened, he has, by deletion he has lost the data, and now he's not able to continue his business, and he's defaulted on the delivery. So Mercedes would blacklist him, right?
yeah,
So every company has their own data, and that data is their life actually. if
yeah.
if if they lose it, you know, they will not be living actually. So for small company DLP is required.
Okay, sir. So it was great talking to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Divya. Thank you for having me here, and I'm always grateful to IT Voice. You know, you always allow us to put our voice, our opinions, our expressions for the benefit of the industry and our own fraternity. So, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.